Thank you all for joining us for our monthly MOAD open mic. I'm thrilled to be having poet Erica Lewis featuring this evening. My name is Nia McAllister, and I'm the Senior Public Programs Manager at MOAD. MOAD is a contemporary art museum, and our mission is to celebrate Black cultures, ignite challenging conversations, and inspire learning through the global lens of the African diaspora. As we begin, we like to invite again to share in the chat where you're calling in from, and also to ground ourselves in the spaces that we're occupying. As many of us are settlers, immigrants, and/or descendants of those forcibly brought to this continent, our institutions were founded upon the exclusions and erasures of the indigenous peoples on whose lands we are located. MOAD occupies the unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, and we pay our respect to the Ohlone peoples and their elders, both past and present, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. I invite you all to learn more about the native lands that you occupy by visiting native-land.ca. And I'll share that link in the chat as well. So for those of you who are new to this space, I will share a brief overview of what to expect from tonight's program. Our open mic space is a place for community, one where we bring our full selves, our experiences, our feelings, our expressions, all the different lived experiences that shape us. And this is a space where we can use art as a means to connect with one another, to find comfort and joy in each other's company, and also to continue to uplift each other in community. And so I want to emphasize that we always center respect in this space, and we continue to amplify Black voices as well through all of our programs and our work. And so for a few housekeeping things throughout this evening, we have a wonderful list of open mic readers, as well as our feature, Erica Lewis. Thank you again for being here. I will read out our readers as you come up in the lineup. If for some reason someone isn't in the space when it's their turn, but they join later, we'll make sure to circle back to them. Each reader has about 5 minutes to share, and please respect the time and space so that everyone has a chance to share. Midway through our open mic readers, our feature will perform, and then we'll close out the evening with the remaining open mic readers. For those of you in the audience, I ask that you'll please stay on mute throughout the event so we can best hear our performers, but do engage through the chat, the reactions, air claps, snaps, any and all ways that you can show love and support for everyone coming up to the mic. Highly, highly appreciated, and it's part of the experience. So with that, I think we can dive right into our first reader, and I would like to invite up Norm Maddox to start us off. You're still on mute, Norm.
Are we on mute? No.
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Okay, I look forward to this every month. And it's an opportunity for artists, poets, or other writers to tell the truth, which is something that we don't see in a lot of our media. Anyway, I got these two pieces. First piece, miseducation, disintegration. This education system is actually the killing fields. What does that make the teacher? A fallen victim on the front lines, a target for friendly fire, a soldier doing systems bidding, a warrior defending their village. Where are the reinforcements? Where are the allies? We don't need more generals to strategize an ambush. We don't need more chiefs to give orders and pass blame for results. We don't need more bosses to abuse the privilege of being in charge. We don't need more administrators to do the bidding for a system that pushes the marginalized across a make-believe gap that separates us from inside us. The system provides the teacher with choices from crackers to crumbs, forcing the conscious educator to choose between being the advocate or being the traitor. The conundrum between being the fire starter or the firefighter, whether it's starting the blaze of thinking or fighting the firestorm started when our babies realized they can think their own thoughts beyond the four walls of a classroom. Teachers in today's classrooms, like candles in a hurricane, keep the flames burning against the gale force winds of ignorance, burning the wick down into a puddle of melted wax, finding threads of reasons to remold a new candle in time for the next storm, tomorrow's class. How to keep it lit when there's no striker and the matches are wet. We don't need more leaders chasing the nightmare that will make America great again. We do need more teachers pursuing the dream that will make America whole again. Next piece. This piece is a dream. Dare I wake? An airplane hangar, 3 football fields dark. Were it not for gravity, there is no direction, no up or down, no left or right, no forward or back, just a familiar push from beneath my feet. In the distance, a pinhole of light, like a distant star, calls me. The gentle pull of curiosity and wonder guides me forward. The closer I get, the bigger the aperture to light grows. I can see a crowd of forms moving in the light. In the doorway, the void of darkness closes behind me. The tug of light in front of me compels my steps forward. A shift in gravity disintegrates the ground where I stand. Though I am not floating, I am weightless, surrounded by light, engulfed by a feeling of peace and oneness with all the crowd that I sense around me. Moving forward is a mindless drift, deeper into this light that fills my cells with something indescribable, an incredible sense of well-being, an equanimity that disintegrates the boundaries of flesh that embody me. With no direction to orient me, my awareness calls my attention to the space I have come from. Time and distance have lost their dimension, and the portal I crossed has become a moat in the field of vision that engulfs my consciousness. Timeless is the forever present, where memory is the illusion of life. Now is the only reality I want to experience. Love attracts more love, like gravity pulls from within. The deeper I am pulled from without. Peace.
Incredible as always. Thank you so much for sharing those pieces, Norm. That was wonderful. Next up, I would like to invite Denise Maciel up to the mic. Welcome, Denise.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. I have just one today. It's untitled, but I think I'll find a name of it soon. Like this. Pen to paper, thoughts flow out with speed. They poison the page. Like the body, they keep score. When you've trained your brain to block out all thoughts, both positive and negative, does it take pen to paper to think? Does it take enduring discomfort until the point of tears to feel? Does it take codependation that borders suffocation to love? I ask these questions in red pen, soliciting answers from my silent paper. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that piece, Denise. Next up, I would like to invite Ramika Bingham-Risher up to the mic. Welcome.
Hey, folks. Thank you so much for having me. I am across the country in Norfolk and we're under a tropical storm watch. So I'm sorry that my video is off. There's wind hitting the house. So if the video goes out, that's what's happening. But I'm so happy to be here with y'all. Thank you, Erica, for the invite. I've been writing a lot about my grandmothers. One that was interviewed for the WPA slave narratives, and another who went to the Central Lunatic Asylum for the Negro Insane. They crossed paths in 1941, and as a poet, it was just too much for me. I had to write their stories. And instead of writing only their trauma, I wanted to write some of their joy. So this is one of those poems. I am trying to carve out a world where people are not the sum total of their disaster. But for the grace of God, one might begin. And this must be the life of a woman. I will barely touch the surface of all it took to keep them here. They taught us to nod to others in the street, to holler love, to knead eggs and butter and flour into yeast rolls larger than fists, to coax and heed the land. Looking at us, every god must be astonished and envious. What could leave us finished? Grandmother's grandmother, enslaved by someone's daughter, enslaved and someone's daughter, held her mother out to us with eager, capable hands. What couldn't she grow? What couldn't she stand? And the man beside her, kissing her neck at night before being thrown into war in the nation and abroad, barreled back to her, her creases, her starch and hand-me-down pots, her thick hair and threadbare dresses, loved every falling apart piece of her, down to the rocked over heels on her shoes. Every lie told says there was no love between them, but everywhere I turned, here it was. Slow drags, belly laughs, few reckon with their joy. Most will make happiness a footnote along with evenings on the porch, hitting the number straight or box, mother wit and inner light. Oh, glory and genius of unfathomable invention, to raise overfull children with a guiding soft hand. Strange how everything can become a symbol, a kusha gourd, songs sung to trees, hair luster, dreams. Any charm one carries can be a hopeful, treasured thing. They helped us find bottles with corners of homespun shine and place our lips above the hollow until they sang. They were not angels. They were not myth. They saved pennies and baby hair and wedding rings, grew big as a piano box, broke through fever. Their suffering wasn't everything. That's all. Thank y'all so much.
That
Appreciate
was
y'all.
amazing. Thank you so, so much for sharing that poem, for braving the storm, for being here. That was much, much appreciated. Thank you. Next up, I would like to invite Katie Pruitt up to the mic. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you, Erica, for the invite. Thank you for writing Mahogany. I'm so honored to be here with everybody and celebrating the release of this book. This is my very first time doing an open mic ever in my life, so very nervous and very vulnerable right now. I don't consider myself to be a poet yet, but maybe someday. What I'm going to share with y'all tonight are a series of short poems I wrote earlier this year when I was in I guess, the thickest part of my grief or dealing with a loss of a loved one. And so I needed to remind myself of all the small ways that I care for myself during those times and all the small things that provide me comfort. So I'm going to turn the camera off because baby steps. If I turn around before my heart heals, you might not like what you see, but at least you'll know I'm brave enough to show up as me. What does the sun do for my soul? It warms me till I forget how cold things can be. What does rain do for my heart? It reminds me that water runs and flows where it's needed most, when it's needed most. What does the smell of flowers do for my smile? It brightens my spirit and tells me there's hope in everything. What does a walk among trees do for my body? It affirms me that I am unstoppable, capable of going any distance until I reach myself again. I stretch my voice to reach the high note, laughing as I stumble beautifully through the lyrics. If no one is listening but me, why does it feel like I've just sang the world into a peaceful sleep? I throw my head back, one ear plugged for the bass and the piano, and the other one open to the unscripted music of everyday life. I'm floating lightly to my soul's happiness. And that's all I have for y'all tonight.
That was so, so beautiful. Congratulations on your first open mic. That was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. Next up, I would like to invite A.H. Jared Avant up to the mic. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. Thank you to Moab. Thank you to Erica for inviting me to the space. This is my first open mic here with Moab. It's good to be here with you all. I'm gonna read a few poems from my first book, which is out from Four-Way Books, called Muscadine. Pride. Give me memories as slow to leave as snails. In foreign and perhaps fragile years, I'll still be able to recognize semen and expect the smoke. Champ's name causes no stress to fill the mouth. Quieter than fear or any of fear's cousins. Vernice takes non-specific pills between spoons of grits and long sips of an instant coffee I love. Robert never told us he was ill, though surely he knew. I've seen knowledge eat large men alive over a summer. Muscadines on center stage as the native grape. The thick skin, the teeth pierce, breaks to pour sweetly across the tongue. Look how I hunger where there is no hunger. Look how Pops left before we thought he was done. Listen how the voice of a dead man can live. Pack me a bag I can fit in my heart. What deer season means to me. In the house, there were always two white deep freezers packed pretty decent with red meat. Deer season, the hunters and the deer would satisfy rent in season by meat, if not by cash. It was May, I was 15, and we smelled 15 or so throughout the warm insides of the manhandled school bus. When Pops steers quick and clear to dodge the deer, and Charlene yells, I didn't even know it was deer season. As if deer only live so they could be killed during deer season. What's a deer outside of deer season, except a reason for deer season? This is my last one. Thank y'all so much for having me. Felonious states of adjectival excess featuring comparative and superlative forms. My mo favorite and mo better is my most favoritist. Is mo simpler this way. Is mo fluider, mo wetter, most hottest, cause the most beautifulest is mo beautifuler, mo meaner, mo flyer, and most flyers. Mo shyer and the most shyest is more intelligenter than the panels is most ugliest and most selectivist. It's the most goodest. It's the most burntest. Is mo burnter. And mo unrulier is the most meekest, and even mo meeker is the most ownablest. Is mo purchasabler. And the most purchased thus becomes the most purchasablest at the sight of the most shiniest coins. My most funkiest is also my most stolenest. But the most stolenest can't ever be more funkier than the most oldest. The most thievingest be the most brokest. Cause the most thieved from be the most oldest. So becomes the most richest, who also be the most fundedest. And that makes me the most confusedest. When I'm in the most keptest buildings that be more kepter than all the most time keeping his cats, they keep in the back of keeping. Thank y'all so much.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. I love how you play with words with your poems. Thank you. I'm going to read 2 short poems and then invite up our featured poet for this evening. This first poem is entitled Soul Nourishment. The dial on the oven sticks with the residue of 110 years of cooking oil. A golden glow lights up the crumbs collecting along the rim of the gas stove. Lady of Guadalupe watches every plate fixed. Her presence is a fixture, a promise that around here we stay fed. My mother's best cooking advice is to cook it till it's done. I scramble how to quantify and qualify the unrecorded memories, the recipe for learning our family's spice routes and waterways, all before the next pot boils over. I am learning we must understand our history by taste. And this next poem I wrote a few days ago, so it is currently untitled. I slip the equinox onto my feet, time snagging my toes. I pull the last rays of the afternoon up my legs, shimmying a sliver of summer around my hips. A new season of transition awaits just down the aisle. Orbs of false summer dangle on my ears, illuminating my anticipating gaze. My body is wrapped in curtains of eucalyptus and redwood, a bodice of tree rings, an ancient time. I wrestle with life. I cover my hair with a slow, crisp breeze and look down at the leaves cascading along my arms. My fall is beginning. I feel the urge to run and watch how the seasons outrace me. But this is no time to question the necessity of change. Thank you. Next up, I would like to invite Karita Wilson up to the mic. Welcome back.
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me okay? All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Karita from Houston, and I'm a short story writer, so the story that I'm going to read today is titled Olive Brown. My mother hated me, hated my guts. So much so that after carrying me for 9 months and going through 18 hours of labor, she abandoned me. She denied ever giving birth to me and never acknowledged me as her daughter. I was never given a reason why my mother abandoned me, but after many attempts to formulate a relationship over the years, she refused. Phone calls went unanswered, the same way knocks at the door went unanswered. The few times I'd seen her out in public, she acted as if I was invisible. Although she refused to acknowledge me, that didn't stop her from making my life a living hell behind the scenes. As a teenager, she kept tabs on me through family members, and once I reached adulthood and garnered a few accolades, she made every attempt to ruin me any chance she got. The only picture of my mother and I was a small 4x4 Polaroid with my full name and date of birth underneath, written in red ink. Olive, Brown, Green. First name Olive, middle name Brown, last name Green, born on January 31st, 1971. Compared to my mother's light brown skin tone that resembled a Halle Berry complexion, my skin tone was on the mocha side of the color wheel. There I was, wrapped in a pink and white baby blanket, sound asleep. As she held me in her right arm, her left hand, however, was tucked under her chin, carrying a look of sadness and defeat as she stared at the ground. There was no warmth in her embrace, no smile on her face, no emotion behind her eyes. She held me as if I was one of those fake simulator dolls they gave the girls in high school to get a dose of reality and a passing grade. If this were a picture billboard above the freeway, it could easily be an ad for birth control, counseling services for postpartum depression, or a scary statistic on teenage pregnancy, given that my mother was only 16 years old. At 16 years old, my mother, Pamela Green, was forced to trade in high school football games and school dances to now making bottles and changing poopy Pampers. Judging by the Polaroid, reality set in rather quickly. My father, Russell Baker, was also 16 years old. He and my mother grew up in the same low-income apartment complex in Sunnyside, a small African-American community on the south side of Houston. They became friends in second grade and started dating in high school until my mother became pregnant and my father was forced away. Once Grandma Anna, my maternal grandmother, found out about the pregnancy, my mother got beat so badly, causing her to miss days of school due to the welts and belt marks that covered her bruised body. The other teens around the complex became suspicious when she wasn't at school and could no longer come outside to play. The word around town was that my father raped my mother and he was the cause of her pregnancy. He denied ever raping or forcing their sexual affairs, but Grandma Anna didn't believe him and threatened to have him arrested and put in jail for sexual assault. My father was not only too poor to hire an attorney to fight the charges, but he also was 16 years of age and inexperienced in knowing the responsibility behind caring for a baby. Weeks later, my father was forced to move with relatives in Detroit, Michigan. He finished the remainder of his school years, graduated, and left for the military weeks before his 19th birthday. He never spoke to my mother again. At my 1-month checkup, the pediatrician noted I was starkly underweight and had a knot on the side of my forehead measuring 3 millimeters in diameter. My mother alleged being in the shower when I rolled off the bed, hitting my head on the thin carpeted floor. Grandma Anna showed little involvement and made it clear she didn't make the baby, so she wasn't raising the baby. The pediatrician grew concerned, and days later, child welfare became involved, and I was placed with my paternal grandmother, my father's mother, Miss Doris Baker. After my father moved to Detroit, she had no other children in the home, so she went from having a 16-year-old to now a 1-month-old in the matter of a week. Thankfully, though, Grandma Doris's home became my home. She became my caregiver, a safe space, and the only woman I've ever known as Mama. Grandma Doris believed in raising a well-rounded young lady who balanced beauty and brains. Beds were made every morning, chores were done after school, and grades had to stay above a B. I was involved in pageants, modeling competition, and Top Teens of America, a program for teens that develops career, character, and community service around the world. My dream was to become an attorney, so joining the debate team in middle school was a path that continued on through high school. As we won awards, gained national recognition, Grandma Doris traveled to our competition, city to city, state to state. On Saturdays, we weren't traveling. Grandma Doris and I volunteered at a local senior citizen center, preparing meals for the seniors, painting, scrapbooking, and their favorite, bingo. I ain't raising no pretty dummy, Grandma Doris would often say. Before leaving this house, you're going to learn how to cook a meal, give back to your community, change a flat tire, and have some manners. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Please, and thank you, she would say. Cooking was not my strongest quality, but I learned and mastered how to make Grandma Doris's favorite meal: fried chicken, collard greens with ham hocks, and black-eyed peas, and a homemade sweet potato pie. Over the years, I often daydreamed what life with my mother, Pamela Green, would be like, what she watches on TV, her favorite food, the texture of her hair, or her favorite color. Speaking of color, my first question would be, why on God's green earth would you name me Olive Brown Green? I embraced having such a unique name and could easily make the Guinness Book of World Records as the only person in the world whose first, middle, and last name can be found on a color wheel. Grandma Doris kept a picture of my mother and I in the family room alongside the other photos, but since being with Grandma Doris, my mother hasn't sent a birthday gift, wished me a Merry Christmas, or bought me one piece of candy from Halloween. The few times Grandma Doris and I seen her at the grocery store, she kept walking, refusing to speak or acknowledge me. My own mother stared straight past me as if I was an invisible piece of plastic. She would never speak ill of my mother and would tell me, just pray for her mind. As a 10-year-old, I wasn't sure what exactly happened to her mind or if she had some type of surgery that would fix her mind. Grandma Doris wasn't providing answers that made sense to why my mother would disown me. So as I grew older, more questions and question marks would surface. One evening, Grandma Doris and I went to Randall's, the community grocery store, to grab a few items for the house. She was on the cereal aisle deciding between Cheerios and Raisin Bran, while I walked to the dairy aisle to grab a gallon of milk. As I walked further down the aisle, I spotted a lady from the side that resembled my mother. I became anxious, scared, and excited to finally talk to her. Previous times, she refused to acknowledge me, so I assumed it was because other people were around. Well, today, it was only me. Hi, Mama, I said nervously, behind a cracked smile. She looked at me with a mixture of shame and fear, threw her cheese in the basket, and quickly rushed away. She let out a scream that caught the attention of the other grocery store guests. My mother continued screaming and pointing her finger at me as they all faced my direction. I stood there in confusion. Before I knew it, the manager was approaching me and I was escorted to the front of the store. Grandma Doris was able to diffuse the situation, but since that day, I never attempted to talk to my mother again. That was one of the few times she left me heartbroken and confused. Around age 13, I began to develop physically, attracting more attention to my C-cup breasts and thick black hair that fluffed out from roller setting the night before. I'd had a few boyfriends in my past, but the one that caught my eye was Charlie Woods. Saturday evenings, our hangout spot was at Funplex skating rink. Some days he would skate and show off our spin moves to the groove of Michael Jackson's Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Other days, my friends and I would hang out along the rail watching the pretty girls sway and the fly guys glide. Charlie instantly caught my attention with his moves and unique style of dress. He was 20 years old, a sophomore at Texas Southern University, and played in the band. Charlie was about 5'9", medium build, and low fade. He was about the same complexion as Michael Ealy, with dark brown eyes, a deep voice, and deep sideburns that connected into a chin goatee. Charlie had an old soul and reminded me of an old church deacon by the way he accessorized his attire with slacks, suspenders, and a fedora hat with a feather on the side. Each time I seen him gliding across the skating rink floor, I giggled like the 16-year-old that I was. I lied and told Charlie I was 18 so he wouldn't turn me away. I gave him my house number with specific times to call so Grandma Doris wouldn't know. Going into my senior year of high school, I took an internship at a law firm that happened to be a few blocks over from Charlie's school. What started off as occasional meetups at the skating rink turned into daily visits at Charlie's dorm room. His roommates were hardly home, so we spent many private hours together. He even went as far as getting me a fake ID so I wouldn't get caught by campus staff. By this point, he knew my real age and agreed it was best to keep our relationship on the hush. After finishing my internship one Tuesday, I decided to relax at Charlie's dorm before heading back to school. It was a school night for the 16-year-old me, but the 18-year-old me with the fake college ID, it was a regular day. Charlie invited some friends over and we enjoyed the night playing cards and drinking Mad Dog 2020. Around 7 a.m. the following morning, I woke up in the middle of Charlie's living room floor wearing only the green top I had on the day before. Grandma Doris was an early riser, 5:30 a.m. sharp, so I knew her eyes were wide open and waiting my arrival. She would either be standing at the door ready to give me the toughest lesson, or I was getting grounded for the next 16 years of my life. I walked in the house and met her at the small kitchen table. She stared me down like I'd come between a kid and his chocolate cake. In this case, an old lady and her fresh cup of coffee. I've been your age before and I know what you've been doing. I told you many years ago I got eyes in the back of my head and can sense every time you acting out of order, she said with a straight face. As my internship concluded and summer was approaching, Charlie and I continued hanging together. I was 1 year away from turning 18, and Charlie's lifestyle was the lifestyle I would soon have: adult life, college life, freedom. Things were a bit shaky at Grandma Doris's since chores weren't being done. My attitude began to change, and I grew tired of the rules and routine. Before going to bed one night, she came to my bedroom door dressed in her duster, head wrap, and house shoes. Life is a matter of choices, and every choice you make makes you. If you want to keep on being disrespectful, Olive Brown, you can get the hell out of my house and find somewhere else to stay. Your mama Pam don't stay far away, but I'll be damned if I'm going to provide a roof and a decent education for you to turn into a tramp. Grandma Doris shut the door and retreated to her bed. To be continued.
Thank you for taking us on that wild ride and for sharing that story with us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I would like to invite Avacha up to the mic. Welcome, Avacha.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Absolutely wonderful. The feature was wonderful. And all of you wonderful storytellers and poets got me away. Anyway, I'm going to stop bragging about you guys and do a couple of things here. Well, before I do, should I make an announcement first or later?
How about after your poem?
Okay. I got a couple.
Thank you.
Okay. From my book, this is, and I'll put my book in our poetry series in the chat. It's called The Rhythm in Us. I am a musician and I've worked with a lot of dance troupes. I'm also the daughter of 2 dancers. So this is written for the Amanakota West African Dance Company, Rhythm in Us. In the beginning, there was only the voice of rhythm, the metrical vibrations of the wind caressing a cocoa palm, a slow, never-ending, predictable pulse, ear candy. The reliable heartbeat of the cosmos, it was God's dance. The medicine, every mother's lullaby, the healing, the rhythm, the deliberate, inexplicable beauty of nature's hand, a mysterious, unnameable something, the hidden but ever-present cadence of a desert storm forever singing to us. It has always been the rhythm keeping us alive, from the beat of our hearts to the chord of the drum. The djembe and the jum dictated the sway of our sisters' hips and the sensual swagger of our youngsters' walk. Our children strutted their stuff like peacocks, flashing rhythmic wings of gongon kui and rah-rah arrogance. We were wealthy with the joy of creativity and had no need for superficial supplements. It was all about the rhythm. The unifying power of the sound that flowed through us. Our organic music had guts enough to be fun, was nutritional, therapeutic, and shamelessly proud. In the beginning, before the concrete clogged our ears, before the foul scent of plastic suffocated the perfume of flowers, even the insects in the trees sang to us. And all the rhythms of the universe called us by name. Way back before hungry city lights gobbled up the stars, we moved with the grace of masters on the balafon, kept time in 100 different languages, and had our egos put in check by the Berimbau, Bata drummers, and the Agogo. It was the rhythm that looked after us, always the rhythm that looked after us, even when the going got rough and they took away the drum. Our fathers went into labor and gave birth to steel drums, put us to bed fortified by the spiritual intensity of Mbira, wrapped us in the storytelling prowess of the Kora and Goma, told us with the Sabah to dream with our eyes wide open and never forget. It was the rhythm. It's always the rhythm. It's always going to be the rhythm, our heartbeat, the master key, the symmetrical healing tonic, a mystical rhythmic power that clears a healthy path to total unity. Sings nonstop to the core of our soul. This drum call taking us home, and we are reborn in dance. And this last one is from a book that hasn't gotten out yet. It'll be out pretty soon, though. It's called Everywhere You. I see you. Exquisite, radiant, and indescribable beauty. You're everywhere. I see you in the starlight, always somewhere just out of reach, floating in the shadows of a never-ending dream that never seems to disappear. I find you. Ghanaian, gorgeous, a sensuous, romantic temptress that won't let love die. An inescapable vision that flirts with me. You're there. In the regal African beauty of every dark-skinned sister that walks this earth, sassy, beautiful phantoms, bittersweet chocolate-covered apparitions, haunting memories, emotions that pass me by and never even take the time to notice the reflections of the presence of you, flashbacks of you, the reminders of you, a graceful dark chocolate beauty, a precious African queen, always dancing, 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 an unending sacred vision, still dancing in my eyes, still dancing through my soul, dancing all over that always place, a home you still own in my heart. So, okay, announcements. I have a multilingual poetry series. We meet the fourth Saturday of the month. It's on Zoom. We come out of Cesar Chavez Library, and since the pandemic, we're on Zoom. Pretty soon, we're going to go virtual. Not virtual, we're going to go, what do you call it? It'll be both virtual and on live. But anyway, pretty soon that'll be that way. But right now, we're still on Zoom. And it's this Saturday. We have 4 features and only 10 open mics. If you want to be there early, because the folks that know, they get there early and jump on those 10 open mics rather. But it's on my website. You'll be able to find the links and everything for that. Also, this Saturday is the birthday of the great John Coltrane, and I'm a musician and a poet, and we have a major celebration. It's going to be happening at the Oaktown Jazz Workshops at Jack London Square. And I think one of the best things I've ever written is one of the things what's going to happen there. But the musicians are off the hook. So if you live in the Bay Area, you need to come on downtown Oakland to Jack London Square. And if you go to my website, you can learn about that and other things that I got going on. And thank you for listening to my words. And just keep on doing what you're doing, because you make me high with the beauty of yours.
Thank you so much, Avacha, for your poetry, your continued advocacy for all of the poetry events you do. You're amazing. Thank you. Last but not least, I would like to invite up Yeva Johnson up to the mic to close us out.
Thank you so much, Nia. I have 2 poems, and they speak to a little bit of some of the poems we've heard earlier and a little music before and after. And thank you so much, Erica Lewis, and everyone who's read tonight. It's been a joy tonight. The first poem is that special recipe from grandmothers and their mothers, too. Ingredients: a big cup of Africa, a jigger of Europe, a pinch or a handful of Native America, 2 ways to answer the bluest eye and yellowest hair questions, a bowl that holds a 23-hour workday, thaw out 60 minutes of rest, knowledge of how to sew and a dozen ways to make bread rise, liberal quantities of the ability to keep secrets, a dash of cut them with your eyes, a pound of premonitions of the future set out to come to room temperature, 4 cups grated wisdom beyond your years. Directions: get your bowl ready on the countertop of life. You might not have all the ingredients yet, but just use what you've got and add the rest whenever it comes. Start with the big cup of Africa and slowly mix in that jigger of Europe and sprinkle the Native America all over. Mix well. Sew up clothes from scraps and plenty of quilts from scraps because it's not just food that keeps you warm. If time is running short, warm up the premonitions of the future in the microwave. Make cornbread, johnny cake, pound cake, rolls, and biscuits, and always enough to feed 2 or 3 more than you expected. Cradle your granddaughter's face in your hands as you share the 2 ways you can answer her bluest eye and yellowest hair questions so she can continue to grow, to know she is already somebody to love. Only share what and when the granddaughter needs to know it. Fold the rest of the secrets into the batter and then pour into a pan big enough for the world. Sprinkle liberally with grated wisdom and a dash of cut them with your eye. Put it all in the oven of creation. Let this epigenetic cake bake until its sweet, spicy, rich aroma calls to all family, past, present, and future. That's when you'll know it's ready and you can share a slice with everyone. Enjoy by eating your fill and putting your feet up for 60 minutes of rest and a chance to exhale. Serves a whole family, every generation. And this second poem is called When I Learned That Comfort Foods I Grew Up With First Came from Africa, I rejoiced in culinary Sankofa. In my middle-class neighborhood on the eastern seaboard, every household had their own special dishes. Just up the block or within a half-hour's walk, my friends' parents might offer me kimchi, falafel, pot stickers, knishes, eggplant parmigiana, or dolmas. Unlike my own parents, born on this soil and fluent in English only, my friends' parents spoke languages to match the delicacies they shared with pride. Each dish could be traced back to a specific country, place, and people. At home, our food was tasty, but not, I thought, particularly special. My parents and their parents and their parents before had been cut off from our mother tongues by the devastation of the transatlantic journey on a sister ship to the Amistad centuries before. Only after moving beyond my childhood home on Imperial Drive did I recognize that sweet potatoes, roasted, boiled, stewed, or in a pie, that greens in the best combination of collards, mustards, and turnip, that rice, a whole world of celebration, plain with every meal or dressed with onions or peppers and fresh herbs and spices, that black-eyed peas stewed or in a salad, that okra in its many forms, that watermelon chilled fresh or pickled rind, comprised part of a diaspora of African-based cuisines. So whether in Bahia, Brazil, or Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, or back in the US in Chicago, Houston, New Orleans, Detroit, or feasting on fried okra and fufu at a small place on a nondescript street in Providence, Rhode Island, that my friends and I simply called the West African restaurant, I would always be able to reclaim a taste of home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva. What a treat it is to hear your poetry and your music together. That was a beautiful way to close and to pull all of the themes from today together. So thank you. And I want to thank Erica again for the wonderful feature. I want to thank all of our readers today. This was such a beautiful event. We had such a range of stories, and yet again, as always, they connect in some special way. So thank you all for being a part of it. I invite you to join us again. This is generally a monthly series, but we're going to be taking October off and we'll be reconvening in November. So on November 16th, we'll have the poet Dior Stevens featuring. So I invite you to come back for that. In the meantime, there's plenty of programs that we have at MOAD, both virtually and in person. We also have some new exhibitions opening at the museum next Wednesday. And so if you're local to the Bay Area or traveling to the Bay Area, I invite you to come visit us in person and come see all the beautiful exhibitions that we have on view. I've just shared in the chat a link to our exhibitions calendar where you can learn more about what's coming up soon. And lastly, we like to hear from you. So please take a few moments after this program to fill out our program survey. It really helps us know what program to continue, how to best support our communities. So please, we love to hear from you. And please stay involved with all that we're doing, whether it's coming to the museum in person, coming to our programs like this, becoming a member, making a donation, any and all ways help us best continue the work that we're doing. So thank you all for being part of this journey with us. And I hope you have a good rest of the evening wherever you may be.